names right now, and I do see some that I recognize. Nice.
You know, I do notice my background appears to be backwards. Is it coming, will it be?
It's correct on this.
It is correct? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's because naturally your brain flips your image when you because you're used to looking in a mirror and things like that. So Zoom flips your image so it looks more appealing to you. You can actually change that in the settings if you want.
Oh, that's all right. No, I won't pay any attention to
That's a good idea, Jonathan, because it's confusing the heck out of me.
it. You can't spell from left to right?
No, yeah, no. That's us people in the Midwest. We can't do that, man. Let me tell you, it's a challenge.
Yeah, if you go to
smarter.
If you go to video settings and then video, to be like the little up arrow next to your start video option.
Yep.
If you go to video settings and then
And I'm lost already.
the option that says mirror video,
Got it.
turn that off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mirror video, and then see it. I just got the first little chat note, I think from Tony Diaz, I'm guessing.
All right, we'll just give it another minute or two to let the last minute people kind of log in, and then we'll get going. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. We are pleased to welcome you to our e-clinic. We appreciate your time. We appreciate that you are taking this to further yourself and better position yourself for the road ahead. Today's e-clinic will be focusing on athletic finance, the roadmap to success. We have Dr. James Forkum, who is a 10-time Hall of Famer, both as a player, coach, athletic administrator, and educator. And we also have Dr. Doug Kuhlmann, who's assistant head of school for Lutheran High School in St. Louis. He is a CMAA as well with the NIAAA. We're glad to have you all here. Dr. Forkum and Dr. Kuhlmann are both adjunct professors within the MCAA program. So if you're fortunate enough to take their class or looking for a class, these are two instructors that you would like to have, because they'll definitely be helpful and are very engaging with their students. We're very blessed to have them today and be able to address this. What the goal of today is to give you takeaways for strategic planning within budgeting, fundraising, and anything within your athletic department. Today, we'll ask you to mute your mics while the presentations are going on. Afterwards, we will open it up for questions. So we'll have about 20 minutes for questions. If you have questions during a presentation, feel free to join us in the chat. We'll have the chat going. We'll be on there answering questions during everything. But if you want to save your question till the end, I'll turn it over to Jonathan, who's within our IT, to explain how we'll handle the questions at the end. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everyone. So the way that you can address questions during the presentation, there's two ways. You can either chat them and we'll be able to collect and look at those later. The better way is if you'd like to be able to speak to our presenters, to hold your questions, write them down personally. And at the end of this presentation, we will have a Q&A session where we will allow you to unmute your mics and or video, and you will be able to voice those questions to our presenters at that time.
And without further ado, we're going to hand things over to Dr. Forkum this morning.
Okay, I need to get my PowerPoint back up. How do I get my PowerPoint back? Sorry about that. Okay. Jonathan, can you help me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so your PowerPoint, you're on a Mac, right?
No, PC.
PC, okay. At the bottom, you should still, as long as you didn't close the PowerPoint, you should still have the PowerPoint pulled up in your dock below.
I do.
If you pull that up, make sure that's open. On the Zoom screen, you can then click share screen and then
share screen right there.
And then go ahead and click the select the PowerPoint application from share screen. Yep.
Yeah, and then share.
There we are.
And then I got to go to full screen over here, and then I'm good. All right, now I think we're ready to go. All right, hello everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I know Dr. Kuhlmann and I both are very excited to spend some time with you today. And needless to say, we're in some interesting times. I don't have to dwell on that too much in terms of what we're framing as our new normal, or what we're hoping will be our new normal before too long. But what I wanted to do is to take the first part of my presentation and talk a little bit about leadership during these kinds of times and what we can do to lead those who depend on us for guidance and help. And this is in regard to whether you're a JV assistant coach, a head coach, or whether you're a varsity coach running an entire program, or whether you're an athletics director responsible for a department of 10 or 15 or 20 teams. I think the key is, and what I've titled this is Communicate, Invigorate, Innovate, and Relate Effective Leadership for Coaches and Athletics Administrators Facing Challenging Times. And we certainly are in that. And I think what is happening is that everyone seems to be focusing on kind of the now, and then what is going to come and what the new normal is going to look like whenever that happens and whenever it gets here. And I'd like to think for a minute about the in-between time. What's going to happen and what can we do as leaders between now and whenever that new normal does come. I'm a little bit nervous right now. I don't know about you, but I'm a little bit concerned about when that new normal is actually going to get here. I don't have the confidence right now that we're going to be able to start programs, at least in California. I know that it looks like the timeline may be put back a little bit, but for whatever, we are going to eventually get back to that new normal. But what can we do in the meantime, between now and the time we do get back to our normal? What can we do to ensure positive change and make sure that it puts us in the best possible position that we can be to get back to business and to lead our organizations as effectively as we can? I think there's 4 tenets that need to be considered. I would ask you to think about communication, how we can innovate, how we can invigorate, and how we can relate to those people who follow us and depend on our leadership. I'm going to run through those 4 tenets and share some insights and give you some tips on how you can strategize these into your approach. You know, we need more communication right now more than ever. I know we all understand communicating is important in organizations, but I think more than ever now under these circumstances, we need to communicate effectively. We need to communicate clearly. We need to be concise in what we put forward, and we need to be consistent with that communication. And we need to figure out how to communicate in as many different methods as we can. You know, email and text and phone, of course, we use all the time, but Zoom, WebEx, and believe it or not, even written notes or letters. We need to use all forms possible and as often as possible. And you know, letter writing or note writing has kind of become a lost art. And it's one of the most effective ways to communicate with people is to drop them a written note through the mail and saying, hey, how are you doing? How are things going? Is there anything I can do to help support you during these times? So consider that as well. And I think that given the time that most of us have now, because we're not back to school yet, we're working from home and that kind of thing, that there is some time to focus on some of these different methods. We need to share new information as often as it becomes available. Reaffirm the old information, you know, let people know that certain things are still in place, certain things are not going to change, but other things are, and try to provide updates as often as we can, letting people know this is where we are this week. But of course, you reference everything with it's subject to change. It might be different next week when I get back to you. But weekly check-ins are a must. We really need to keep that communication ongoing. You know, when there's a lack of credible information, human nature that people are going to fill in the gaps either with negative pieces of it or with fake news, and you don't want to let that happen on your watch. And you'll see that I'm a big fan of Peter Drucker. The quote at the bottom, the most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said. I think that can kind of help us in that regard. Innovate. We need to develop new approaches to old problems. Certainly these are new problems that we're dealing with, and old solutions may not be appropriate. It may not always work. We got to rethink the things that we've done in the past, different solutions that we've kind of depended on, and try to identify creative and alternative options that can help us progress and continue to get bigger and better and stronger as a team or as a department. It's a good idea to ask your group, whether you're a coach, ask your team. If you're an athletic director, ask your group of coaches for a brainstorming session. Do it in a virtual format. Get everybody together and kind of throw out some of the issues that as the leader you may be dealing with and that are going to need solutions, and ask your staff or your team for their ideas on how some of those issues could be solved. So seek creative ideas from your staff and team members. We need to challenge the old thinking out of the box process. Sometimes that's kind of a cliche, but I think at this point in time and where we are, thinking outside the box is really a must. I suggest that you conduct a climate study and check for perceptions about the organization, both from within and from without. And I'll talk a little bit more about a climate study here in a later slide. Might be a good time to conduct a needs assessment, review your handbooks, conduct a facilities audit. Again, this in between now and the time when we get back to our new normal is a great time to try to conduct some of these fact-finding projects. More than ever, we need to invigorate those who depend on us for leadership. Now more than ever, we need to be passionate cheerleaders. We need to be rah-rah. We need to be positive. We need to be supportive. We need to help people focus on the positive aspects of our current environment. It's not all bad. It's not all negative. Sure, there's hardships. There's issues that we have to overcome, but there's a lot of good that's happening. And we need to focus on that as much as we do trying to solve the problems that this situation has created. We need to kind of help our group focus on that silver lining that we all know is in every cloud. Articulate clearly and with passion, the ways that the team or the department's going to be better and stronger when we get back to that normalcy. And I really do believe that we will be better, we will be stronger. We're going to be more flexible. We're going to be more willing to and able to make quick change. We're going to be quicker on our feet. So there's going to be some good things that are going to come out of this. We need to continue to let people know that it's not all bad. We need to be truthful in all things, but always temper that reality with a positive slant. Did I mention the silver lining? And we want to ask for their input, seek their suggestions, ask for their ideas, and we want to praise those who do that and who contribute to the effort. So that's another important thing that we can do to invigorate. We have to be relatable. As leaders, we've got to be able to put ourselves into the shoes of those who follow us. You've got to walk in someone else's shoes before you can really understand, what's going on within. We've got to be empathetic, sympathetic. We're kind of all in this together, and we have to continually kind of remind each other that this is not affecting just one, it's not affecting a small number, it's affecting all of us. And that we need to focus on that. We are all in this together. And I think sharing frustrations and concerns that we have in common with each other during this time is really a good idea. It really puts us in kind of a humanistic form, and it's an excellent way to create better bonds and better relationships during this time. I think there's a three-step process that we could follow. One is to continue to care for our team members and our staff, even when we're focusing on these elevated anxieties and the stress and all the virtual obstacles that we find to trying to do what we do. We want to have conversations with our team or with our department that involve more than just work. I know most of us as leaders, we try to keep a professional guard. We try to keep a level, a little bit of separation between us as the leader of an organization or a team and our players or our coaches. And I suggest that at this time, maybe it's a little bit of a positive process to kind of let down our professional guard just a little bit and maybe open ourselves up just a little bit better than we normally would. I think we need to develop a higher level of vulnerability and humility. And I know some people can look at that as a sign of weakness in a leader, but I really see it a sign as more being a human being. And the more we can relate to each other as humans and put ourselves on the same level, I think the better our relationships are going to be and the better our leadership is going to be in the long run. I think if we can be vulnerable, it enhances our personal connections and produces a feeling of being cared for and about. And what more can you expect from your boss or your head coach or your athletic director than to feel that they care about you and that they care for you? And to establish that is really crucial, especially in times of distress that we're in now. And I think we need to seek a balance between what the department needs, what the team needs, with the needs of what our individuals need. What do our players need? What do our coaches need for them to personally achieve what they want and to fulfill, what they need out of this whole process. So be involved in their personal lives rather than just what they're doing at work. We also need to understand that while our home situations might be fairly stable, theirs may not. We need to understand that everybody's home situation is a little bit different. Some of your coaches or some of your players may really be struggling, trying to adapt to these new circumstances. And we need to understand that. We need to be aware of that. And we need to check in with each one to see how they are adapting. Some may not be adapting well, and you may have to give them more attention than you would some who seem to be adapting much better. Just some strategy tips, increase the frequency of check-ins, even if it's just a short, hey, how you doing? Just wanted to see if things are okay, was thinking about you. Again, focus on the whole self, not just the work part of what we all do. Maintain that belief that vulnerability and humility are not weaknesses. They're actually invitations that bring stronger connections. How you respond during difficult times is really a key measure of one's leadership effectiveness. It really shows kind of what you're made of and how strong you are and how well you are holding up. And so take that to heart. And finally, humility shows that you care, and caring is a powerful leadership tool. And so you want to use that tool as often and whenever you possibly can. Flexibility, I think, is the second part of this step. We all want flexibility. We all need flexibility. We all enjoy having some flexibility and deciding how we want to go about doing what we need to do. Do keep in mind that people adapt to change faster. Teams and departments change a little bit more slowly, so you need to be prepared for that. But I think now this in-between is a prime opportunity to explore new technologies, virtual interactions. I think we're all getting pretty good right now with Zoom meetings and WebEx and those different approaches, but continue to look at that. How we can schedule practices, how we can schedule department meetings, coaching meetings, staff meetings with your assistants, and just meeting times and formats in general. Try to integrate slowly coming back. We might want to think about using hybrid forms and different variations than we did before we went into the current circumstance. So a strategy is take time to learn what works through experimentation, seize the opportunity to shape the new normal, because if you don't, or it's going to shape itself, or it's going to do it unintentionally, and it may not be a good result for you. So take that time to really explore this. I think the third step in our communication, again, frequently, transparently, and with humility. We've got to just communicate more and inform more than we've ever done before. And this needs to continue, I think, once we get back into our new normal, whatever that may be. It's a habit that we probably need to continue. That humility in communication, and I think we need to say a little bit more about why rather than what. Sometimes as leaders, we focus more on here's what we need to do rather than sharing why we need to do it. And I think now is a time when we really do need to focus as much or more on the why rather than the what. And if we can do this, it helps build our connections and it enhances our emotional responses with the groups that we lead. And again, sharing your personal stories, sharing things that have happened to you, things that you've had to deal with, is going to help them to get a better understanding that we are all in this together. Some strategies, use vulnerabilities and humility to build these connections. It won't go unnoticed, I guarantee you. If you make this a practice, make it a habit, people will notice. If you haven't been doing it, I suggest you give it a try. If you have been doing it, make it a priority and continue doing it. You know, today's environment's not just about this pre and post pandemic. It's really about us experiencing this, what I hope is a once in a lifetime crisis, and the fact that we can be growing together and we can build connections. share our experiences and what we've learned by this, and experiment in new ways of working together that are eventually going to make us a better organization, a better team, and it's going to make you a better leader. I want to share now some things that you can do to help move your program forward, especially given the fact that we do have a little more time right now to focus on these things, because we're not dealing with the hour-by-hour crises that come up when you're a head coach or when you're an athletic director. The first would be to think about conducting a climate study. I don't know if you've ever done that before, but it's a good practice. It's one that really takes some courage. And what climate is it represents the current state of your team or your department's culture. I know we all are concerned about culture. We all want a positive culture. We want people to feel good about what we do and being a part of what we do. But if you don't measure that, your perceptions may not meet reality. And so it's a good idea to kind of find out, what the aggregate perception is of your team, of your coaches in your department, and how they feel about being a part of the team, or how do they feel about working in your department. And the importance of a climate study is that eventually it will decide your success or your failure. And that's an important reason to do this. And when you develop practices that enhance the team or the climate, the culture improves. Now keep in mind that climate can actually turn around fairly quickly. You can make a change in climate literally in just weeks. Culture change, of course, is going to take a little bit more time. But have you considered the climate on your own team? Have you considered the climate within your athletics department if you're an AD? Your perceptions are probably that things are going really well, everything is good, everybody loves me, everybody loves being a part of our program or a part of my team. But that perception may not completely match the realities, or there may be some gaps. There may be some issues that you're not even aware of or haven't thought about. So thinking about conducting a climate study is really a positive effort. Some of the things that you want to find out, ask your team or members, how they see the team. How do they see the department? Do they feel valued? Do they feel included? Do they feel supported? And that's, of course, very, very important. How do they feel about the team or the program, and what could it do better? What does the program do best? You obviously want to know what things are good as opposed to what things maybe need some improvement. You want to find out what are the areas for improvement that the leadership could focus on. Ask others in the school. And as I said, this takes a little bit of courage and a little bit of willingness to open yourself up to inspection. You may find out some things that you're not really happy about, or you may find things that you didn't think things were this way, but others do. And it may be tough to hear that, but that's how we grow, that's how we get better, and it's how we become effective leaders. Seek input from community members, from parents. What do they think about the program? And this one's really tough, but one that I found to be extremely valuable is to seek input from your opponents, from opposing coaches or opposing players. You can canvass them on, how do you feel when you come to our facility to play? Do you feel welcome? Do you feel like things are organized? Do you feel that, that we care about how your experience is? Do we seem hospitable? Was everything in place? Did you feel like we were organized? And it's a good idea to really get that feedback to make sure that you are doing what you think you're doing. I like Drucker's statement that if you can't measure it, you can't change it. So you really do need to look at measuring your climate. Just some dimensions of climate so that you kind of know what to think about. Clarity. I think we all want things to be clear. Is it understood how expectations that you have for your team or for your department relate to the goals of the organization? Standards. Are there standards in place? Does everyone know what the standards are? How were those standards improved? Is there training to help people meet the standards? Are reasonable goals set? And is mediocrity accepted or tolerated, or are the expectations to always excel and be the best? Responsibility. Do you feel you have authority delegated to you? Do you feel that you can do your job without being micromanaged? Do you feel that there's accountability? Flexibility, we talked about that earlier. The degree to which you feel there aren't a whole bunch of rules that kind of don't mean anything or aren't really important, or just kind of hoops that you have to jump through. Are new ideas accepted easily? Rewards, an important one. Are people recognized for good work? Are players recognized for an outstanding performance? Is the degree to which recognition is related given to the levels of performance? And finally, team commitment. Does your team or your group of coaches feel proud and express pride in being a part of the program? Do they trust that everyone else is working toward a common objective of being successful and helping people reach their goals? Another tool that I think you can use to help move your program forward is to do a needs assessment. A needs assessment is a systematic way for finding out what are the current conditions and what are the desired conditions. You could frame it that it's a needs and wants list. And you've probably got gaps. You may not know what they are, or you may be aware of them, but you don't focus on them. Finding out where those gaps are is important to making effective change. It can help improve the quality of the team, your department, decisions, and it can lead to better performance and the desired results that we all want. I would ask, and I used to ask each coach for a list of needs and wants. What are the things that you absolutely need to be successful? And then give me a list of 2 or 3 wants, things that are not necessarily critical and crucial that you have to have, but things that would make your program better, make your job better, and make your team or your coaches feel good. And once you give that, ask them to provide a justification. You just don't say, well, give me a list of what you want and what you need. Justify it. They need to explain how that is going to help them be successful and how it relates to the program's goals and objectives. And if they can do that, then that's something that you want to honor as a coach or as an athletic director. And I used to always try to provide at least 1 need and 1 want. And even if it's something as simple with a want of providing a new set of t-shirts or a new set of socks or something of that nature. And it's not really what it is that you provide. It's the fact that you're doing something that you've allowed your team or your coaches a chance to express the things that they think they need. You could also form an advisory group of coaches or your captains to review the list and to help offer advice on which ones could or should be funded. So consider a needs assessment. Mission, vision, and core values. I know most people have these in place, but do you really have them in place? And do you live by them daily, or are they just words that are written down somewhere and in a file cabinet that no one really looks at? I think you need to allow players and coaches to help define and develop these. If you don't have them in place, they need to be reviewed yearly. Are these statements behind all the decisions driving the team or the department? Again, or are they just some words that are on a piece of paper that you have to have because of accreditation or because it's required? Mission and vision statements are the big picture of what your program stands for. Begin meetings with a review of the mission and vision statement as often as possible. When I was athletic director at a large junior college and dean, I started every meeting reading our mission and vision statement. And that way, at least I knew that this is something that we addressed and that it was something that was in front of us and that people could relate to it and they could tell me what it was about. Core values are the beliefs that help a team and individuals discover and understand what's right and what's wrong. What's the difference between the two? They're extremely important. But if they're not posted in your facilities, If they're not in your training room, if they're not in your locker room, if they're not in the gym, if they're not in the weight room, then they're just words, again, on a piece of paper. You have to discuss each of them and offer examples by you and from you on what those words mean, and give them examples of what it means to be disciplined, or what it means to be respectful, or what it means to be inclusive, or whatever your core values may be. But I really would urge everyone to pay attention to core values in particular. Handbooks. Handbooks are crucial for the effective running of a team or an organization, athletic department. They disseminate accurate and necessary information, and they allow policies to be shared and be shared with everybody seamlessly so that everyone knows what's going on. They protect ADs and coaches from unnecessary liability or unneeded lawsuits. You need to have something in place, something that's written, something that the public can get to, that explains the policies and how they're going to be adjudicated. Make sure you do follow the letter of the law in each handbook. If you're going to have handbooks, you need to do what's in them. If not, take it out. You always want to ask, what does the handbook say about that? If a coach or a player asks you, did you read the handbook on that topic? As the answer is there. You want to go over that handbook every year at the beginning of the year meeting or by season. Make sure that the coaches know what's in it. Make sure players know what's in it. And I also suggest a handbook for parents of what the expectations are for the program, what the goals are, what's allowed, what's not allowed. How can parents effectively talk to a coach if they have a problem? How do they bring that forward? There's positive ways to do that, and there's some negative ways to do that, as we all know. So having a handbook that parents have to read is a great way to solve a lot of problems before they happen. Handbooks should be reviewed and updated yearly. Keep them current, keep them accurate with new policies and any new rules that you come across. They should be written clearly and concisely. And believe me, they don't have to be entertaining, humorous, or funny reading. You want to vet each handbook with the administration to ensure that they're congruent with the school's policies and overall mission and vision. So think about handbooks. Facilities audit and inspection. A lot of times we don't think too much about the facilities until something breaks or something goes wrong and we have to have it fixed. But any responsible leader should have a good understanding of their facilities, what kind of shape they're in, what the status is, when they were last looked at, what needs replacing, what needs repairing. Should be conducted at least a year after an initial survey and audit is in place. Does take a little bit of time to do the first one, but once you've done that, then you can go through an audit every year or every other year on each facility. This again will cover you liability-wise. First thing an attorney is going to ask in a lawsuit is, did you have an audit? Did you inspect the facilities? Did you have a repair plan in place? If you don't, you're going to be liable. So they help you review for safety compliance for teams, classes, and the community who might use your facilities. Develop a checklist for each facility. Check off boxes that, yes, it was looked at, the date that it was checked, and the equipment, machinery, your HVAC system, storage rooms, everything. You need to work with your facilities and maintenance department. They're going to be a big part of that effort. Note when all the repairs are needed or when they've been replaced. You want to create a 5-year plan and replacement schedule so that when something does break down or does need to be replaced, you've got a plan on how you're going to do it. Budget for unexpected emergencies and equipment failures. Those things happen. Develop a rotation basis and maintenance check. And I always like to give t-shirts, sweatshirts, or something to the facilities and maintenance workers who are going to help you keep your buildings and your facilities up and running. Don't neglect this important duty, because if you do, there's going to be a cost to pay in the long run. Some other important documents that I think are crucial is a visiting team guide. I know in our league, you have to have one. It's not something that you can do or not do. Everybody needs one. but your visiting team guide, and that's what you're going to send out to all the opponents who are going to come and visit. It's a window on your team. It's a window on your program. It's the first impression that other coaches and other teams are going to have, and it's going to help shape how you are perceived and how your program is perceived. You want to include all the necessary information, put in a Google map so that if they're on their way to your game, they can Google map to see where you're located. You want to let them know where buses should park, location of all the facilities. Is there going to be admission charges, where the restrooms are? Is there going to be a snack room, where the locker rooms are, training room? A list of all the teams, all the coaches and ADs with cell numbers and email addresses. Very, very important information, very helpful. A risk management plan. Most schools, most organizations, institutions have a risk management plan, but you might want to have one for your athletic department that looks at what the risk could be and what are we going to do to mitigate those risks? What things do we have in place to help make sure that we don't have accidents that could have been prevented? I know as part of our MCAA degree, putting a risk management plan together is a requirement, and that's one of the most effective things that I think we do. Another is an emergency action plan for your department. Do you have it? Is it posted in all facilities? In California, it's now state law that every athletic department must have an emergency action plan in place and review it yearly. In California, you have to do a practice drill with every team. So something else that maybe you haven't thought about that you probably should. Last few things, budgeting, and Dr. Kuhlmann's going to give you some great insights on raising money. These are some tips on how to budget that money. Transparency is a must. Anytime numbers are being discussed, anytime money's being discussed, everybody's interested, everybody wants to know. And you build trust over time when you share budget information, how the budgets are determined, and believe it or not, how much each program is getting. So the coaches aren't wondering, well, how come so-and-so is getting more? Or are they getting more than I'm getting? That kind of thing. You want to avoid that in all the possibilities if you can. Explain how the budgets are developed. What criteria are used to determine that? Schedule individual budget meetings with each coach and go over what their budget's going to be. Listen to their needs and wants. Consider using a zero-based budget model, which is where each program begins at zero and the coach or team has to justify each expenditure that they want for that particular year. Consider a tiered budgeting model using 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 tiers with specific criteria for each. Makes it very easy to defend what you're giving each program. You might want to allow team members or coaches to help establish the criteria for establishing your tiers. Finally, that's all I wanted to share. I have time to share with you today. I hope that some of this has been helpful. Please understand you can call me, contact me. I'll put up my contact information. You're welcome to phone me, email me at any time. I'll help you in any way that I can. If you've got questions or need help on any of these things or any way that I can help you to formulate some of these things in your own program, please let me know. And I look forward to your questions at the end of Dr. Kuhlmann's presentation. Thank you for your attendance today. All right, Dr. Kuhlmann, are you ready?
Yes, sir. Here I'm coming on. Okay. Can everybody see my screen there? Is that screen locked in?
Yes, you're good.
Perfect. Good deal. Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Forkum. That was awesome. Can you send me a needs-based assessment? I sent you an email during the presentation. You know, I'm excited for that.
Believe me, I've got one.
Perfect. I'm going to take a lot of the elements that Dr. Forkum talked about from strategic planning, the forecasting, and then talk more about budget and give some nuts and bolts about ways that you can potentially raise money as a coach or as an athletic director. I'm not going to read all this to you, but please, on your own time, as you have time to read this when are downloadable, please do so. First of all, I think we're all acknowledge that our budgets are stretched. You know that athletics are the undeniable part of our school communities, but as revenues are squeezed and our expenses increase, and we have lower allocations, from the government, from our school districts, and so on and so forth, we've got to have some options. That option becomes creative fiscal management. As you can see there, I have some words in red, some in blue. Those are kind of the key ones that I want you to be focusing on as I go through my presentations here. Kind of on that third bullet point, I do want to draw your attention to that roughly 3%. A lot of times people think that athletic budgets make up a majority of a school, specifically a high school's expenses, and the national average is 3%. If you weren't aware of that, please, the next time someone criticizes what you do with sports, please throw that back at them. Obviously, the overhead of staff and salaries is near 80% for every school district across our nation. 3% is what we spend on athletics on a national average. What about things that I'm going to kind of capitalize and look at here? I'm going to talk about marketing, branding, alignment with strategic planning. I'm going to spend a majority of my time on that fifth bullet point there, generating dollars. I call that, we use the term fundraising. I'm going to use the term advancement. I'm going to explain to you why I use that word as we're moving forward here. What can the coach or the AD do? The two pieces I want to draw your attention to there are in blue. Relationships matter. That's a hashtag that trends on Twitter all the time. The relationships that we have as coaches, as athletic administrators at all, along with our parents, our schools, our community is very, very important. And that's kind of if you take anything away from my presentation today, take that away. I'm also going to key in on what that word advancement means, because it means different things to different people. First element to look at is marketing. What are you doing from a marketing standpoint? Is your strategy that you have for your athletic department or you have as a coach for your team, does that match what your school is doing? And if not, you got to make sure there's some synergy there, some alignment. I think if I throw this up there from a marketing standpoint, is as we look at different, brands all across, across our nation, everybody would know what all 12 of these are. The only one you might not know is in the bottom left-hand corner. I put that one up there on purpose. I'm not a Wisconsin fan. In fact, my Oregon Ducks beat them in the Rose Bowl, so I'm a big Duck fan as an alum. So I did have to throw that one in there. But point is, we all recognize what those things are. The key then that as we talk about is, Dr. Forkum talked about that strategic planning is making sure that we're aligning our marketing and our branding with that vision that we have for our program, where we want to be. How is your marketing being used? What's your electronic presence on social media? How about just the front of your uniforms? Are they consistent? I've been using that word advancement. That word advancement can be categorized in 5 different ways. Again, I'm going real fast here. I have a lot of stuff to get through, and I want to get to the nuts and bolts here. But what does that mean? Marketing, branding. What's your communication? What is the narrative that you're sharing about your athletic department or your team? That third point, development, raising, fundraising. I have 6 targets we're going to talk about here in a moment, and then obviously events and then enrollment. A lot of this information I'm pulling from here, I got this from a book, Ain't Too Proud to Beg. I think as we talk about, especially what COVID-19 is doing and has and will do over the next year and even years, we need to learn that, number one, your relationships are important. Number 2, we're going to talk about advancement, because we're not just here to fundraise. Fundraising is a here today, gone tomorrow piece. We want a more long-term approach. The third thing, Dr. Forkum talked about showing appreciation for your facility workers. You got to make sure you're saying thank you, because your thank you is your next ask, basically, is what I'm going to talk about here. And then finally, make sure that, as Dr. Forkum mentioned, that you have alignment with your school administration, because if you don't, what you're doing with athletics or with your own programs is all for naught. So kind of the key thing here, the what I want to spend the most of my time on is, how am I going to generate these dollars? The first 3 there should be pretty obvious to you. If they're not, I'm going to go through quickly sponsorships, your events, your booster club. You probably have those things now. I want to spend a majority of my time on 4, 5, and 6. 4 and 5 are the key ones I think that a lot of athletic departments do not do right now that they need to be doing, especially as we talk about, like it says in the green box below, what COVID-19 has done to our, our nation and will do moving forward. Then the 6th thing I want to touch on is participation fees. I'm not a proponent of them. My school doesn't currently, but we're a private school, so these kind of things go hand in hand. But I do want to offer up some insights on that as well. I think you might be saying right now, well, holy moly, you know what? Being a coach, being an athletic director is very, very hard work. Yes, it is. Like it says there in red, 6 days per week, 12 hours per day. You know what? We have mind-boggling things that are in front of us that we have to do as athletic administrators or as coaches. I've done both, and I do both now, and they're both incredibly difficult. I think the key there, like it says in the second paragraph, is what are those new revenue streams? And that's what I want to key in on here. First one, sponsorships. That's just what the NIAAA, how they defined what a sponsorship is. I think one thing, and this is a tidbit for you, I have 2 signs up there. Keep in mind that when you're talking about these sponsorships here, that it's not just organizations. The banner on the right is one that I have hanging up in our gym. We have individual families who will gladly sponsor your athletic department because they just appreciate what you do for their son or daughter. Likewise, on the left, that's just one. A&W is a sponsor that we have. Make sure that you're not just talking about organizations, but rather you're talking about families as well. Make sure that when you deal with a sponsor, you are not only telling them what you're going to do for my school, but also what you are going to do for them. Bottom right-hand corner, I have a contract. Make sure that every time you have a sponsorship, you have a contract set forth about terms of payments, as well as over on the left side, what they're going to do for you, and on the right side, what you're going to do for them. One thing you need to be real careful with sponsorships is make sure they're partners. They're not donors. They're not donating you anything, meaning when you donate something, you expect nothing in return. They're absolutely paying you for the right to have something up in your gym, on your stadium, you know, that you are saying for them at your PA, at your games. It's not a simple, just a gift, which we're going to talk about later. Make sure you kind of keep in mind there too, kind of the corporate influence. Make sure that the people that you're aligning with organization-wise are what your school believes and what your schools endorse. The next piece here, events to raise money. I think everyone has like top their golf tournament, golf marathons, auctions, a lift-a-thon, or any other sort of type of a-thon. You know, these are really unlimited. I'm going to give you 5 slides in a row very quickly. Bottom line, borrow from your colleagues because what they have is obviously working for them. When you talk about your events from a school standpoint, the key is getting butts in seats. You know, what are you doing as an athletic director or as a coach to make sure that, you know, I have 4 daughters and I want everybody to go to all my daughter's basketball games. You know what? For some people, they'd rather go to a boys game and not a girls game. Likewise, there's other people who'd really go to a girls game, not a boys game. How do you get everyone at your game, whether they're a fan or they're not, is make sure that you are getting people having butts in seats. So just here's some ways to do that. Again, what are you doing in the game? What kind of promotions do you have in the game, which are, again, putting people's butts in the seats at your games? Same thing, game theme nights. Make sure you have those. Again, I did talk earlier that COVID-19 is going to throw us for a loop here. So there's actually a lot of schools out there that are talking about how they're going to do these things virtually, how they're going to stream, how they're going to have their sponsors then be able to sponsor those streaming opportunities they do have. If your school does allow, make sure you're going to have raffles because that's a very easy way to, as you have those butts in seats, so to speak, at contests, to do 50-50s and do other opportunities during those contests. Third thing there, Booster Club. That's just a logo that we have at our school for our Booster Club. If you don't have one, I think you need to start one. The first question you need to ask in red there, is it all sport or is it individual? You're going to get people who believe in both of them. I think my experience has shown me, and I think a majority of people probably would tell you, an all sport Booster Club is the way to go, you know, just moving forward. So please borrow from somebody, bylaws, entity that you know. Start a Booster Club if you don't have one right now is the bottom line. Make sure as you're the AD, if you're the AD or you're that coach, make sure that you give direction to your Booster Club. They're not there to take over. You are there to instruct them and direct them. Make sure, like it says, they recruit and train strong leadership. You need to make sure that you are working with people that you want to work with, that you don't have people kind of going off the reservation, doing their own thing, because ultimately they're going to do what you tell them to do. You know, with the Booster Club, make sure you do tread lightly. Again, kind of in blue, they're there as an advisory capacity. They're there to support your fundraising, but you must provide that leadership. One of the things I think, and this is kind of a key premise here, I'm going to spend a minute on this, about grants. There are a lot of grants out there for a lot of different sports and activities. upper left-hand corner, upper right-hand corner, I have Boys Lacrosse. If your state doesn't have lacrosse, and some do, some don't, there are grants out there that they will give you upwards of $10,000 per annum on a 3-year contract to start a lacrosse program. Same way with bass fishing over on the next one there. You see bowling, you see the Florida high school down there, it had boys volleyball. One of the ones that we did at our school here recently, esports. We started an esport program and had Boeing, obviously makes airplanes, and MasterCard, and St. Louis brewer here, Anheuser-Busch, donated to our school a lot of money to get started on esports team. And there's a lot of grants out there. You got to know where to look for them. But if you're not doing that now, that is one thing I'm going to ask you to look into. That fifth thing there, and I could spend a lot of time on this is what I spend a predominant amount of my time on at my school now, and obviously with Concordia, as well as gifts. These are consequently not what we're talking about when we talk about sponsorships. These are when people are giving you gifts. Kind of goes back to that ain't too proud to beg methodology. Never be too proud. People want to give. They want to donate their time, talent, treasure to work with your booster club. Likewise, they want to donate their dollars to you to help you with different projects, whether that's a track remodel, gym remodel, weight room remodel, adding hitting cages. You've got to make sure that you're out there doing those asks. It's, again, don't be too proud to beg. You're not begging. They want to help you. People want to help you with your projects. You just got to ask them. And if you don't ask, you're never going to know. You got to make sure you do your homework and have that quote unquote case for support. Make sure that you are looking at Q1, 2, 3, 4, and putting together a plan. You can't just go ask people for money. You got to have a reason you're doing it. This is one here. You guys are the first people actually seeing this. I've not shared this with anybody in our school community yet. We just got done doing a gymnasium and fully funded it through donations. Didn't use any tuition dollars or any sort of government coffers, and fundraise an entire amount. Next piece we're going to look out here is building an outbuilding and a third gym space, as well as a turf, baseball, softball field. People want to see this. People are going to get excited when I show them this at our school community. They're going to do the same when you show them at your school community. Last thing I want to look at here is participation fees. A lot of information here about, are they a good way to go or not? And I think you need to make that decision at your own school, but it is a way, especially with COVID-19 and some of the pressures that we are facing with those limited budgets, shrinking budgets, and ways to generate dollars. Again, they might be controversial, but it might be a necessity as well, especially when you talk about those budgets getting shortened. Here's an example of that over on the left. That's what our fee structure will look like for next year. We spell it out for our families. And again, if you're going to go this route, this is a good potential for you to generate a lot of dollars there. Again, we're a private school, but in our St. Louis region here, I'm going to say about 85 to 90% of schools are already private schools, and public schools are charging a fee to participate. Our kids, my daughters are paying fees when they play in club sports. It's rolling down to the high school realm as well. You might think it might hurt numbers. A lot of places have done studies on, is it going to hurt numbers? Here's just one. Connecticut Association of High Schools did conduct it. Kind of talks a bit about that. California recently just did one in 2018 as well, and basically came out with, no, that participation fees do not hurt school climate, but they do present some other challenges. So there's my references there. Feel free to look up some of those, and then my contact information as well. Dr. Forkum, myself, really appreciate the time that we had to share, these pieces with you today.
Thank you, Dr. Forkum and Dr. Kuhlmann. We appreciate the presentations. We're going to open up now to questions. We know we're coming up on the 11 o'clock hour. If you have to drop off, that's fine. If you'd like to stay and ask some questions, we'll have about 15 minutes to do so. You can either type in the chat, or else Jonathan will help navigate through the raise hand features that we discussed earlier. So I'll hand it over to Jonathan now to handle the questions. Thank you.
Hi there, everyone. So if you have any questions that you would like to pose, feel free to either give me a yes, which is an option in the participants menu or put a hands up if you'd like to be unmuted and ask a question. Our first question we have is from the text from Derek Lau. Where is the best place to start looking for grants?
Well, that's a great question. I would start with your state association. Typically, those websites, all 50 states, have a place on there specific for grant. From there, the second best place is to go to the national websites for each of these organizations. So for instance, if you think esports, and I can send these to you on email too, esports has a high school website intended to generate interest in esports specifically. Likewise, there's one for bass fishing. You know, we just started that here in Missouri, and a lot of schools have applied for grants to, you know, bass fishermen to cover the costs of, you know, buying a new boat or something along those lines. So I'd first start with your state association. Second thing, then go to the national association. Those are your first two best places.
I had one question that came in wanting to know what's the best platform to conduct a climate survey with. Survey Monkey is good. Google has some tools. The key is that it be anonymous and that you allow people to be candid and to really share their insights, and use something that will allow you to compile the data easily, either a spreadsheet or a graph or a chart of some sort, and make it accessible and easy for people to use. Don't ask too many questions. Ask the key things that you really want to find out. You may know that some things are already in really good shape and you don't need to canvass what you already know to be a fact. Canvass those things that you're not sure about. But any of those types of surveys out there, and if you'd like more information on that, email me and I'll get back to you with some specifics. So thank you for that question.
Any other questions for our speakers? Will you have them?
I actually have a question. As an athletic director, not myself, but as an athletic director, would you be irritated if a coach came to you with an idea that he already, checked with, a location to be able to set something up, looked for sponsorships and grants and all that stuff, without telling you in advance? Would you, as an athletic director, be irritated that this person wasn't keeping you informed of his idea? Because I feel like majority of the times I've ran across athletic directors that shoot you down because they think the idea is bizarre. And yeah, that's just been my past experience. So I'm asking you, as an athletic director, would you guys be against that, or should the coach individual be keeping in communication with that athletic director for that stuff?
That's happened to me many times. I would say, would I be upset? Yes and no. It depends. I mean, I think the first question is, does the school have a policy and procedure in place for going to requisition those sponsorships? If no, then how are you going to be upset with him for trying to push the envelope? If there is, and he did it anyways, or he or she did it anyways, that's a problem that needs to be addressed. However, I like when people push the envelope. It's a matter then of just helping redirect their energies. So happens to us a lot here at our school. In the world, we have policies and procedures. We just, again, tell those coaches, hey, love the energy. Let's focus it here and let's work together, as opposed to you going out on your own.
Yeah, you certainly want to encourage coaches to take on some initiative and to come up with ideas and solutions. Coaches may not always be aware of school policies, or there may be things in the philosophy of the school that don't match with a particular grant or a source, but you never want to discourage someone from coming forward with an idea. And I think Dr. Kuhlmann's thought on having policies in place and sharing that with the coaching staff so they know, here's how you go about this, and share it. And I don't think it would be a matter of being mad. I think it would be just a matter of kind of reining in the enthusiasm, encouraging that enthusiasm, and working with the coach as best you can to do what the school overall will allow you to do.
Thank
Well
you.
stated. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, well, we thank you all for your time. We thank you, Dr. Forkum, Dr. Kuhlmann, again, excellent takeaways. We will have the YouTube link up and send out to all those that have registered after this event's over. And then if you'd like their presentations, please email us or email the speakers directly, and we'll get those to you. Again, thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.